Hi, and welcome to my Life Coach Mama workshop about having another kid. So, before we begin, I just want to go over a few things. We are going to talk today about questions to ask yourself before you begin discerning whether or not you're going to have another child. And then we're going to talk about mindset management. And in that, we talk about our ABC models, which are just basic cognitive behavioral therapy skills that we're going to learn. We're going to talk about what state we want to be in when we're making decisions. We want to look at some negative thinking patterns. We want to challenge some cognitive distortions and look at our beliefs and what our brains are telling us. And then at the end, we want to look at some positive thoughts about having another child, about children, about parenting and our family, and look at the benefits. So after all of that, I hope you will be able to come to a better decision of what's best for you, your spouse, your children, and your entire family. Thanks for joining me. I heard a priest use this in a homily once, and I thought it was fantastic. I think we can ask ourselves these 4 questions anytime, but I think it's really important to ask when we're making a decision. Okay, so when you are trying to decide what is best for you in a certain scenario, best for your spouse, your family, your children, you really need to figure out, where are you? Okay, so in life coaching, we check our thoughts, we challenge our thinking, we look at what our brains are saying. And a lot of life coaches like to refer to what scientists are now calling evolutionary biology. Just the idea that we have evolved, and over time, human brains have been trying to keep the human race safe. So our ancestors back in the caveman days were trying to avoid animals and large cliffs and big rocks falling and other tribes of people. And so they were always looking for danger, making sure they just stayed alive. And today we still have those same responses to situations. We ask ourselves, is this dangerous? Am I going to live? Okay, but we don't really need to be thinking those things because we are not cavemen. So that's what the life coaches that I was trained by and continue to work with like to talk about. Another aspect is just the general human condition that we find ourselves in. We are humans with needs. We're going to be hungry and thirsty, tired, lonely, angry, sad, frustrated, etc. Going back to science and evolutionary biology, we also know now not only about how human brains have evolved, but we know that there are different parts of the brain that have different functions for us. We know there's a thinking brain and a feeling brain. Okay, without getting into anything too technical in neurology, I think we can all understand this. There's the brain that acts, and if we are in danger or we're trying to stay safe from something, we're going to have a fight or flight response. And then there's the part of the brain that can think, that can be rational and logical. Okay, so a just easy way to look at this is the acronym HALT. So this is what I heard a priest say once. And I think if we're going to be discussing something as big as having another child, getting pregnant or adopting, or just trying to figure out how many kids you want to have, it is a big decision. Okay, so when we're making decisions, we want to make sure we halt. Okay, we want to stop. Are we hungry? Might sound silly, but we all know the phrase hangry, and it really does affect us. Okay, the same goes with thirsty, but I'll put that in this H line. So we don't want to be dehydrated. We don't want to be needing food. Okay, we want to be in a good, clear mind. What about angry? Okay, that would never be a good place to make a decision, right? We've all made decisions out of anger and they never really turned out well. I'm thinking of myself just 2 nights ago. I just was so angry that my children would not go to bed and they were fighting, and I yelled. I was embarrassed afterwards and apologized. And I just said, you know what? I was angry. I shouldn't be giving you consequences out of anger. So we want to calm down. We want to access the prefrontal cortex, okay? We want to do whatever we need to get out of that fight or flight mode, okay? We don't want to be running away from something, and we don't want to be fighting something in our decision-making process. Another thing, are you lonely? Okay, so this would really relate to the topic because we're talking about relationships, we're talking about children. Okay, so we, I think, can all agree that if we're going to have a child, it's for us to give. It's for us to love. Okay, another child is another person who we are going to love and whose needs we need to meet, right? Because the baby's going to be born needing food and attention, and it's up to us to supply those needs, okay? So we don't want to be having a child because we're lonely, or we don't want to be thinking about having more children when we're in a situation of loneliness. Okay, so we want to just check ourselves, ask ourselves, what are we feeling? And just really get in touch with those feelings. Or just simply tired. Now, for me, over the past 15 years, I've been pregnant pretty much off and on most of the time. And a lot of times I'm tired because if it's not a pregnancy, it's a newborn baby. We also have an older child that we adopted who's now out of the house and a young adult. And that was also tiring in its own way. So I understand this one might be rough. And for men or for women who have not yet had children, you might just be tired because our lives today are exhausting. Our phones keep us up. I don't know about you, but I have the bad habit of scrolling social media, reading the news before bed. Those screens don't help. TV, there's always noise, and we just pack our day with so much to do. So you're probably exhausted just like everyone else in this world. You have a good night's rest. You don't want to have that groggy feeling, that fuzzy brain, just that unclear thought process. Okay, we're going to make a good decision from a good place. So the reason why we halt is we want to ask ourselves, where are we? Okay, do I need something to eat or drink? Do I need to calm down from something that's upsetting me? Do I need to connect with someone? And am I just needing a good night's sleep? Okay, if we are not in any of these, then we can probably have a better assessment of where we are in our family's life and where we are personally and where we are in relationship with our spouse and other family members. And we can think more about others, like our other children that we already have, and make a better decision. Now I just want to go over some great life coaching questions. Some questions that my coaches ask me, and they just really put into perspective what I'm thinking about any area of life. We're talking about adding another kid to your family. Okay, so I want to ask you some questions. Here are some thoughts to ponder, and if you can get out a piece of paper and a pen, it will be good to go back whenever you want, or you can pause this and take some time to journal, because there are a lot of thoughts going on in our brains and we don't even think about them. It would be impossible. There's about 60,000 a day. And so we want to think about some of these things. We want to think about our thinking. Okay, so here we go. What are you making this mean? Okay, are we adding an extra meaning to this? The question, do you want another child? Okay, I think that men tend to be better with just black and white thinking, and also they're known to not have as many thoughts as women in a day, so maybe they don't have 60,000 thoughts. Maybe they have more like 20 or 10,000, and so they're just able to maybe answer a question a little more directly. Okay, now that's a total generalization. Of course, there's women who do that, and there's men who have more thoughts than women, so this is just an overgeneralization to make a point. So if you've ever get frustrated with your husband, if you ask him, how was your day? He says, good. Okay. Sometimes my husband answers in just grunts or noises or looks. I have like 200 words to answer just about every question, on top of an opinion about it and follow-up questions. Drives him crazy. Okay, so there's just some differences, and that could be a personality thing, maybe not a man and a woman thing, but you get my point. All right, so let's think about our thinking. Let's try to get through those murky waters and make it just a little clearer. Okay, so what are you making it mean? Are you adding meaning to having another child? Does it mean you'd be a better mom with another child? Does it mean you would be a stressed mom with another child? Does it mean that you wouldn't be as selfish? Okay, all of those things I would say are untrue. It's great to want to have another kid. I did choose, my husband choose to have a pretty big family in today's standards, but I don't really think we made it mean anything. Now, of course, there is the fertility issue, and that was just working out for us. We were able to get pregnant easily, and so that's just kind of how it happened. It wasn't necessarily because of any sort of meaning we were putting behind it. Okay, so we want to think, what are we getting at? What are we trying to accomplish? Okay, maybe you don't have any answer for that one. So let's move on to another question. What's the worst thing that could happen? Let's say you don't get pregnant or the adoption doesn't go through. Okay, in that scenario, think through all the way to the end that you can of that scenario, and how would you feel and how would you think and what would it mean? Okay, let's say you do get pregnant. Let's say tonight you try to have a kid and you get pregnant and take the pregnancy test in a few weeks. Okay, so let's think, what's the worst thing that can happen if you do end up getting pregnant tonight? Okay, so let's just think these things through. Again, pause the video at any time or come back to it if you want to just jot down the questions right now. Another question is, how can I live my best life? Is there something that you're wanting to get out of having a larger family? Is there something that you think would benefit you, or something positive you think will come from this? Okay, write that down. How can I make myself a priority? Okay, so you are the caretaker with your mother or the father, and you need to make your self-care a priority. Are you doing that already with your current children or in your current life if it's childless? Okay, what ways might you need to focus more on yourself, taking care of yourself, so you can be a better parent? So think of those, whether it's a list you want to jot down or just some ideas, go ahead and write those down. If you haven't had the amount of kids you want, I want to ask you, why is this a problem? Okay, what does this mean? What are you making it mean? How is it a problem? Maybe this is how it's meant to be. Okay, maybe this is exactly where you are. Maybe you've been given the amount of children you need. Okay, so just ask yourself, why is this a problem? Okay, and also write down the feelings. Are you grieving? Maybe there were some miscarriages. Okay, do you feel loss? Do you feel like you haven't mourned the death in the miscarriage? Okay, or maybe it's an issue of infertility, okay, which is very painful, but do we want to add additional pain to that? Okay, we don't want to ignore our pain, and we don't want to ignore any negative feelings, but do we want to add to it by blaming ourselves or blaming our spouse, okay, or projecting into the future and having a cognitive distortion of future thinking, of knowing what's going to happen with the next pregnancy? So we want to jot those down. And another thought is, why aren't you taking action? Okay, so let's say you've wanted another child for 6 months, a year, 2 years. Okay, what is holding you back? So before we go into the workshop today, we really want to know what we're thinking. And since this is a generic workshop for anyone, I can't address your specific concern. So in one-on-one coaching, which is what I do, I'm able to let you do all the talking. And you are going to tell me what exactly you want, how, when, why, where, who's in your family, what they're feeling, your spouse's thoughts, your feelings, your desires, okay, all the problems, all the details, all the background information. Okay, so you need to write that down for yourself in this workshop. But I would love to connect with you, and the best way I can help you and the quickest way I can get you results is if you sign up for one-on-one coaching with me. And then this way I can listen to everything that you need to say and we can address those specific problems and really get to the bottom of them for you, really solve them. Really, you will solve them, but I will help you get there, and we'll get to the bottom of it and really just find some peace. Okay, so let's move on. And now that we know what we're feeling and thinking, and we've checked the HALT acronym, we're going to move on and do an ABC model. So let's use our ABC model to talk about the thought that the kid is misbehaving. Okay? So if a child acting up is stressing you out, which is something that happens all day long, every day, we can think about our thinking about it. We can realize that the kid's behavior is not what's causing us our feelings and creating this negative outcome, but it's our thoughts about the kid's behavior. Okay, so let's look at what your brain is telling you, and let's challenge to see if there's any lies or if there are any truths that are just not helpful to be focusing on and ruminating on or repeating in our minds. So let's take the behavior, whatever it might be. Okay, so that'll be your A, and the A is the activating event. And then we look at the B. Okay, are you thinking it's okay? This happens. I can handle it. Okay, are you feeling calm and confident? Maybe this is where you want to be, but it's not where you are yet. Okay, so let's just do a download of all our thoughts and feelings and beliefs going on in our minds and in our hearts, and then we'll see how to get to this model.